last few years, we've done a few series diving into older Call of Duty titles, retrospective looks at what was at one point the latest and greatest offerings that Call of Duty had to offer to the player base, in theory, and had an active player base, supported content, and so on. But as the years go by, new projects are released and new games emerge to pull the players towards something new. So what becomes of that game in the past? Today, I want to take a look at one of the games we've discussed in previous years and seemed to be one that surprisingly hits home with a lot of people from my experience with these deep dive retrospective videos. Today, we're going to be taking a look at Call of Duty World War II in 2020. As we go along, let me know your thoughts down below on the game. Is it one you enjoyed, maybe that you still do enjoy to this day, or maybe not so much? Whatever it is, feel free to let me know. As well, if you are new to the channel, do be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Call of Duty related, especially as we round towards a new year of content coming up with Black Ops Cold War. But in the meantime, all things relating to Modern Warfare, Warzone, and of course, some retrospective fun breakdowns like this in COD history. But anyways, let's begin. Admittedly, it's been a while since my last outing on World War II, so much so to the point that I may have actually even deleted it off my console at some point to make room for other games. Modern Warfare is 200 gigabytes. So I just checked while editing. I wanted to meme Modern Warfare, but what? I had absolutely no idea World War II had this large a file size. But the game brought back some memories and some stuff that I totally forgot were a part of that, so I'm excited to discuss a little bit of that here today. But as for the gameplay, what's it like in 2020? Well, firstly, I think one of the big questions is how easy is it to find lobbies? That's something that is always a decent question, but of course, the further back in time you get, the harder it is to find these lobbies. But admittedly, I found lobbies rather quickly, so much so to the point where even some of them were instantaneous. And if you keep playing, you'll find lobbies that are full of diversity in terms of level and skill, but I did end up finding a couple of lobbies that whenever I backed out and researched for a match, I'd end up finding a hot streak of getting the same players in some cases. So that's bound to happen, but that's also probably something that is just down to the player counts at that point in the region, because unlike games like Modern Warfare with no real skill-based matchmaking brackets, instead matchmaking is kind of predicated upon party size in World War II in a lot of cases. It's not so much necessarily a factor that you're coming into contact with these same people because they're in the same skill bracket. It's just likely because they're trying to connect in the same region as you, and the player counts overall may be a little bit smaller. But mechanically, the game feels a little different. The pacing, the movement, the features, things like that. Pacing-wise, it did feel a little bit slower compared to, say, Modern Warfare and this most recent year. Tac Sprint is a big thing that I think helped speed up the game of Modern Warfare and what we know of Call of Duty, but it is something that also could be some sort of shock from going from PC to console. That FOV difference does change your perception of the pacing of the game. Things like automatic healing are in this, and this was the last time that we saw automatic healing for a while. We don't know if Black Ops Cold War will have any sort of stim feature, but it may also be returning back to this, but definitely an adjustment there if you're used to playing Modern Warfare with even just the stim attachment, or Black Ops 4 where it's manual healing all around. I'll admit to it, one of the first times I got into a bind in a gunfight, I tried to stim and I threw a stun grenade instead. Recoil on weapons, it really came down to the weapon you were using, but a lot of the times in World War II, it felt like there was very minimal recoil. And this was also one of the last times we saw a system that did not have predictive recoil patterns. Modern Warfare and Black Ops 4 introduced that into the world of Call of Duty that allowed you to, if you really wanted to, study recoil patterns so that you could master them and get it down to a minimal penalty for holding down the trigger. But World War II is one of those things where if you're playing on controller, if you just held down that right thumbstick ever so slightly, you basically mitigated all recoil. So that was something that was really easy to jump into gunfights with because your shot was that much more laser focused. As for the player base and the players that I encountered here within my time on World War II, honestly, we just touched on it a little bit, that it's not determined based upon skill-based brackets. So it was nice and casual, but also you could have those competitive matches from time to time as well. You got a mix of players that knew what they were doing and maybe not so much. You could easily stomp one game, have a competitive match the next, or be stomped even yourself the next game following that. So it was a nice mix and a nice balance here of that. And that's kind of where I'm at with the whole skill-based matchmaking debate. Not to really break too far into it, but I want a healthy serving of all of those types of engagements, not necessarily just all competitive. It was nice in World War II to see a matchmaking system like that. Level-wise, for quick glance comparisons, I was seeing a lot of Match the Prestiges, either on the high end in the high rank of that, and then also some people on the low Prestiges, or sometimes even not even Prestige. So it seems like it's kind of those people that picked up the game relatively recently, and then some of those people that have just never left the game, which there's nothing wrong with that, but that's some stuff you may run into. Also, one thing that has been there for a while, and I totally forgot about this until I logged on again, is that double XP XP, double division XP, and a double weapon XP are live consistently. They're not going away, so if you ever want to rank something up and just say, hey, I want to get to a new prestige or rank up this weapon, if you just want to go back, that will help out big time because that stuff isn't going to go away. It's there forever now at this point. Same thing also with the permanent unlocked collections within the Quartermaster, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Overall, though, the game itself right now plays pretty well, but I want to take a second to touch on what I think is some of the positives now revisiting World War II. Some of the stuff that I think World War II did pretty well and set Call of Duty on a decent pace here for. One thing that we haven't seen since then, but I think was a fun addition here, whether or not you see it as useful or if it was something that was just kind of there, the headquarters I thought was a cool addition. From the social aspect of it to everything in between, though minus that social rank, which took an ungodly long amount of time to rank up once you got to say rank 15 and up. But things like the firing range, that is something that I'd love to see return in just about every single Call of Duty in the future, even though it probably won't. The Quartermaster and Major Howards was a great addition as well, where you could activate contracts for supply drops or even base variations of weaponry, which again, we'll talk about in just a second a little further in the contracts section. Major Howards offered daily and weekly objectives that would allow you to get things like supply drops, social score, XP, and things of the like for very simple tasks. And the cool part about Major Howards was that after 6 daily orders completed or 3 weekly orders completed, you ended up getting a bonus supply drop or rare supply drop just for simply resetting the progress of that, which was really cool if you ask me, further rewarding the grind in the game. Things like the emblem station and score streak training booth were pretty cool also. Rest and relaxation, though I didn't really ever play around with it, was pretty cool to see some old school Activision titles thrown into the headquarters of World War II. The enemy aircraft event, despite it being added in very late on into the main year of support for World War II, even though it was something that was planned from the very beginning, it was cool to see that finally come, and it's a nice little way to farm some XP, some social score, and just take part in something cool in the headquarters. The mail station was also awesome, I thought, because of course you got your daily login bonuses in terms of your armory credits, but also if you're a master prestige player, every 4 hours you ended up getting double that armory credits you could pick up from there also, then whatever you got for your daily bonus as well. So that was really cool. Another really awesome positive to come out of World War II was the Division's overhaul, and this was positive because it was kind of one of our first encounters with the community feedback genuinely making a difference within the game. It was a fundamental shift in the balance of how the game was based upon just off of what the community had to say. Since then, I don't think that we've seen anything quite like this in terms of drastic changes. It was rumored early on into Modern Warfare's main year of support that we'd see something like this, but alas, we never did. Now, without a full-blown breakdown of the event to spare you some time because there was a lot that went into this, it shifted some of the fundamental design of the Division system, where things like specific perks only limited to specific divisions, like say a suppressor previously only available on SMGs in the Airborne Division, and the Mountain Division Sniper Steadiness being restricted to just that class and type of weaponry. The overhaul saw to it that players could utilize features and aspects in ways that was not limiting and allowed for a wider range of gameplay styles. To me, that was a pivotal moment in the game's history. I remember being in the kitchen with other content creators and press for what I think was the DLC 2 capture session, back whenever World War II was the main year of support, and I think it was Greg Reisdorf who came up, explained a little bit of the content we'd be seeing in the day, and then also said, and wait, there's more, and then detailed the overhaul, and just about everyone's jaws dropped at that point because it was such a significant change to the fundamentals of World War II, and it was something the community had been asking for quite some time. So at that time, it was kind of amazing to see that what we thought was a no-budge situation completely gave and changed to what the community wanted. That was amazing. In a somewhat similar fashion also to an overhaul, but not necessarily mechanically, I think once the event of Attack of the Undead happened and Sledgehammer really let go of that realism approach to the game, that's when I think the game truly became fun, and I think you could also tell in the studio Resolve that they were just having more fun creating content. There was no limits at that point, it was just pure creative freedom, and I think it showed in the gameplay. But that's a different story for a different day, probably. Another large positive here was our first real introductions to seasons, though. We saw, of course, things like the Days of Summer happen in Infinite Warfare and Modern Warfare Remastered, but we saw actual, throughout the year, seasons happen within World War II. DLC, yes, did still coexist with these seasons, and some bigger than others, and unfortunately still tethered to a season pass, or in this case, individual packs that could still be purchased, unlike Black Ops 4 a year later, where it was all or nothing with a Black Ops pass. Ultimately, though, I think seasons were good and bad, offering up new ways for players to experience new content, a little more frequency in terms of updates to the game, but also in World War II, it was still tethered to, again, that outdated model of how DLC was actually given out, where players didn't have those maps for free. Another big thing that I think came out of World War II was the MTX system. Here on the channel, we've been outspoken about some systems in place that we did not like. And I'm looking directly at Black Ops 4 because that's where we had probably the biggest problem here with this. But with World War II, I truly think that this game was probably the best of the supply drop fiasco years with microtransactions. I've said it before and will gladly say it again that having met a decent portion of the Sledgehammer team, they've always seemed to me to be the ones to fight for what the player wants and to give them something to work towards and earn, not necessarily having to place behind a paywall, and that's the only way you can obtain things. While there's plenty of stuff that won't ever be publicized and won't ever see the light of day of what was actually pushed for, the intentions were there to do the most for the player, even though Activision's business side was kind of looming over and being like, nah, you can't do that. Kind of dictating the process here for it. But of the supply drop years, we had plenty of things go wrong. From filler content like Black Ops 3's attachment variants and emblem layers to full-fledged weapons being in supply drops in other years. World War II, I think, was admittedly in a position that inherited a lot of problems in relation to supply drops and MTX. But when introduced as cosmetic-only items, it was a nice remedy. You could absolutely obtain a weapon from supply drops through cosmetic variants, but you could also get a contract for the weapon. You could activate orders and contracts to earn supply drops en masse compared to how quickly you would earn them in previous games, and that would allow you a chance to get other weapons. You had collections that your duplicates could then help you earn weaponry or any other cosmetics items that you wanted, and route to play by buying them with those collections with in-game currency of the armory credits. You had these three main avenues of attack of getting new items, and unlike other games of the era, your playtime actually felt like it meant something and rewarded you as such. Now, perhaps I'm biased, but I ended up getting every single DLC weapon in the main year of support by simply playing. Now, granted, after Black Ops 4 launched, there were, I think, 2 or 3 more times where they updated the game and added new weaponry in. I don't have those ones just because once Black Ops dropped, I didn't really care too much to go back and grind out the game for weapons that I really wouldn't use all that much. But I would save up all my drops, do a few daily orders and contracts to get a few supply drops a day out of about a half hour of playtime each day or so, then open up all those drops right after a new season and new DLC weapons dropped, so I could get those new weapons, or at least the chance of a new weapon right out of the gate. If I had gotten unlucky out of those 50 to 100 supply drops or so that I'd saved up, I'd likely have enough credits to buy it from a collection. Since then, that has never happened. I think that I just recently got all but one Black Ops 4 DLC weapon, and I don't think that I have nearly all the weapons in Black Ops 3 Infinite Warfare, and I'm still even missing some in Modern Warfare Remastered, which was the closest system we had to World War II. And the asterisk on all of this is that I obtained all those DLC weapons in the main year of support, while also not being able to play near as much. I was at the time a full-time college student, so to me, this system just worked. Additionally, like I said, even though a lot of the stuff can't ever see the light of day, Sledgehammer always did push for more stuff the player could grind out. I think that was seen in World War II pretty well. I mean, we had Master Prestige rewards, camos and uniforms, and while it wasn't exactly what everybody may have hoped for, it gave you something to do within those higher ranks. The social rank rewards also gave you, of course, something like that verification that I think it was 21 was the max level, where once you completed your social score rank, you got a verification icon above your name in the headquarters, but you also ended up getting specific blueprints throughout that time as well. Contracts and orders gave you daily and weekly things to complete and, of course, grind out in any capacity. That was really more so up to you. Collections, of course, gave you a ton of items you could earn and then grind out with armory credits and supply drops. And then also things like traditional challenge systems offered up exclusive calling cards for categorical completions in either your prestige, your game modes, your weaponry, stuff like that. It just gave you a lot to do and a lot of stuff you could be rewarded for. And that was something that I really liked. And going back since Black Ops 4, Modern Warfare, there are some grinds, but I think that World War II still takes the cake in relation to that kind of stuff. And of course, I do like that we get free DLC. I like that there is no supply drops, but for the time being, at that point, I thought World War II knocked it out of the park. But now we're just kind of getting ahead of ourselves here with a retrospective look at World War II. But overall, to close out this video, how did it feel to go back? Truth be told, it was different. It was definitely something that felt completely strange compared to Modern Warfare and Black Ops 4. But once you got the hang of it, once you ended up reacclimating yourself with that game, it did feel really good. The gunplay felt snappy, it felt quick. TTK, of course, was a little bit fast compared to where people may have wanted it, but it was nice. Things like no skill-based matchmaking, an entirely different era, which again, may just be my own bias. I thought it was fun to go and experience some of this here, but I had a good time. So if you have World War II, you want to jump on and experience this once for yourself, it is still very populated. It still has that player base. It still has the support to find lobbies relatively quickly, and definitely I think it was a nice change of pace and something that if you're looking for something to spend your weekend just trying out something different, maybe taking a break from Warzone or Modern Warfare, it's not a bad option. But that's where we're going to wrap it up. I'd love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Honestly, I love doing these type of retrospective looks, going back, playing an old Call of Duty for a day or two, and reporting back what I find here. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Anything you have to say about World War II, feel free to. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to drop a like down below. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Modern Warfare, Warzone, Black Ops Cold War, and of course, retrospective looks at older Call of Duties like this one. If you're interested, stick it here for more. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected outside of YouTube. Live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care and peace.